Jury deliberations in the dee-Warner murder trial now on pause until next week. Thanks for joining us here on WTOL 11+. I'm Jeff Smith.
And I'm Kaylee Marintet. Today was supposed to be day 2 of deliberation, but that quickly stopped when one juror could not show up. And now questions are being raised about the alternate jurors.
And that's why tonight a former assistant prosecutor is joining us to give you a little bit of an in-depth legal analysis about what could happen next.
But first, Melissa Andrews is in Lenawee County, where the jury was sent home early.
Jurors are scheduled to return to the courthouse Tuesday morning at 9. Ideally, the juror who had the emergency will be able to just jump back into deliberations and they'll all restart. If not, 3 alternates remain available. They were randomly selected yesterday, and attorneys also agreed to dismiss another alternate, apparently after concerns he had fallen asleep at one point during the proceedings. The potential problem is that those alternates were released yesterday without being told to avoid media coverage or discussions about the case. Because of that, the judge individually questioned each of the 3 remaining alternates this morning about anything they may have watched, read, heard, or talked about related to the trial.
So do you remember the news station that you watched to learn about the deliberations?
Just Channel 11.
Channel 11.
That's all I get is radio stations in my house.
And it was just about the deliberation, nothing else about the trial?
I didn't see anything else.
Now, the conversations you had with your wife and son, do you know about how long those conversations were?
Very brief. I mean, I've been asked by my wife, I don't know how many times.
Okay.
I know you're leaning one way or another. I said, I can't talk to you about this. That didn't go over well in my house.
Each of the jurors said they had watched, read, heard, or talked about the trial and their opinions with loved ones, but said they could still be impartial. The court says they did nothing wrong because they were not given that instruction. If the juror with the emergency is able to deliberate on Tuesday, my understanding is those deliberations will continue on as normal. If not, it's not clear what would happen next. Reporting in Adrian, Melissa Andrews, WTOL 11.
Well, weighing in on this now is former assistant prosecutor and current assistant professor of law at the University of Toledo, David Harold. Thanks for coming back with us.
Well, thank you for having me back.
You were here with us last week. A lot has changed in a week here in this. Jurors were deliberating, and we were expecting this to be day 2. But like we just heard from Melissa, they were sent home early because a juror had an emergency. The alternates were brought in. They said that they had watched media coverage, and they said that they weren't actually told to avoid media coverage. We talked a little bit about this before the show started. Who would that fall on to tell them to avoid watching media coverage on that?
Well, that's the judge's decision, and the judge would decide whether or not, depending on where it was in deliberation, whether or not, when the alternates were released, whether they should avoid media or not. In this case, the judge didn't give that admonition, so the alternates really could do whatever they wanted at that point.
This has now come up that it could be a problem, though, that they have watched media coverage.
It could. Mm-hmm. Ideally, what would occur on Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever the trial would resume, whenever the emergency for the particular juror was remedied, the jury that was sat originally, the non-alternates, would deliberate and reach a verdict.
So when the alternates are sent home, mm-hmm. the judge can say, you guys can just do whatever you want, go, and they can watch media coverage, they can talk to their family, they can give opinions, and they can be brought back, and it's no problem. What is the other side of that? They're told, don't talk to anybody? Correct.
I mean, what needs to be determined from the court, if the alternate would be needed, or if an alternate would be needed, if that person could be fair and impartial. If this would have occurred during the pendency of the trial, they would have had what's called a Remmer hearing, mm-hmm. which comes from a Supreme Court case that says when there's any type of outside influence on a juror, the court speaks with that juror and then sees if the other jurors knew about what that juror knew. So in that regard, and during deliberation as well, jurors mm-hmm. change their mind. Mm-hmm. So the fact that alternates aren't in at the outset of jury deliberation. What can happen is the jury would then start from scratch with that alternate juror. But in this regard, again, the 12 impaneled jurors in this regard, I would hopefully have a high likelihood of reconvening and reaching a verdict.
I hate to play the what if game, but let's say what if this juror that had the emergency can't come back. They say these alternate jurors weren't supposed to watch media coverage, and they did, which wasn't their fault. They weren't told not to, but now they're saying none of these jurors are going to work, and now there's 11. What happens? Do they just go with the 11?
Traditionally, you need a 12-member jury. I don't know Michigan law. I don't know if they have a provision that would allow for less than 12. Most jurisdictions, you have to have 12 jurors. In that regard, and there couldn't be, that juror couldn't come back. In that regard, there could be a motion for a mistrial. But I think that would be, truly a true last resort situation.
Not only has there been an issue raised with this juror that had to miss today, and now they're moving deliberations on pause until Tuesday, but there was also word that there was a sleeping juror. And we had talked about this. These are long days that they're hearing all this information. It's a lot for them to handle. They shouldn't be falling asleep, but one did. What do you think the defense is going to do when it comes to that? Do you think that's grounds for them to say, well, they were sleeping, they might have missed key information, this could be a mistrial?
No, because that juror was removed. So that's one of the reasons why there are 3 alternates in this case and not 4. So, and again, sometimes that happens. Sometimes jurors fall asleep during trials. Sometimes they do their own independent research, which you can't do, and that causes for that individual to be removed. And because in that regard, the fairness and impartiality of that individual juror has lapsed. So the fact that juror has already been removed in that regard removes that as being a grounds for a mistrial.
What do you think the defense could be trying to think right now as there's been sort of these delays and now a pause in waiting for the verdict? Do you think the defense is already kind of cooking up, well, we could appeal at this point or maybe try for a mistrial?
Well, in that regard, they don't have the ability to appeal because there's not a final appealable order. And that won't happen until, presuming that there's a conviction and a sentence at that point, the appellate clock starts to run. Again, it's a little premature for a motion for a mistrial. If the absence would stretch on, weeks, that's a different situation because, sometimes, you have long weekends and there are times where there are breaks in deliberation for the jury for reasons outside of any individual juror's control.
There was questions about this in our newsroom. Let's say it's just they can't get a jury to come back. They don't have the 11. Could this be like a start from scratch retrial? Is that like worst case scenario? Does that even happen?
Well, and again, what you're talking about is a mistrial. There are certain things that occur if the jury, in the scenario that you brought up, you have several members of the jury that would not be able to deliberate, then, in that rare occurrence then you would move for a mistrial. And sometimes the court in a situation can do that on their own.
Right now, again, this is really early. When it comes to deliberations, today was only supposed to be day 2. But is there something that the prosecution and defense are doing while deliberations are happening? Are they just waiting, or what goes through their minds?
Oh, there's a lot of waiting. Because truly at this point, there's nothing that either side can do. And as I said, at this point, even a motion for a mistrial is premature. They just have to be patient and wait on a verdict, and it could take days, it could take weeks, and what you try and do during deliberation is, as much as humanly possible, remain calm and have trust in the jury.
Just wait, which is, we said, the easiest but hardest thing to do right now. I have one last question for you. We've had a lot of viewers saying, the first day they wanted a verdict right away. They're like, why isn't there a verdict? He's guilty, he's not guilty. What would be your advice to people as, again, the hardest thing to do is wait, as we wait for this verdict?
My piece of advice would be to be patient. At this point, the determination of the verdict is where, as a society, we want it to be, which is in the hands of 12 individuals who watched every moment of the trial. They're reviewing the pieces of evidence that they want to review. They're discussing what each of them remembers from the trial, and they're arriving at a fair and just conclusion. And sometimes that takes minutes, sometimes that takes hours, sometimes that takes days. And the important part is that it's a fair and just result. So in that regard, the time that the jury feels is appropriate for deliberation, we have to trust that that's the right thing.
All right, David Harold joining us here today. Again, thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you.
Jeff, we wanted to turn it over to you for a final word.
All right, Kaylee, once again, the jury is expected to continue deliberations as you discussed Tuesday. There is no court this weekend or happening on Monday. Now, once a verdict is reached, we will bring it to you live from the courtroom right here on WTOL 11+. And no matter what happens Tuesday, we are going to be back at it right here, same time, same place, 6:35, to bring you the latest from Lenawee County and bring you more in-depth legal analysis. Don't forget, you can see how this case all unfolded from the very beginning right now by streaming Hidden in Plain Sight, the disappearance and discovery of Dee-Warner, anytime on WTOL 11+. 11 Investigates sat down with Dee's family and broke down the entire investigation in our special 30-minute presentation. That'll do it for us tonight. Make sure you follow us on all of your favorite social media platforms and download our free WTOL 11 News app on your phone so you are the absolute first to know when a verdict is reached, no matter where you are. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again right here on WTOL 11+.